you seen the radio contract?
I have a meeting tomorrow night, and that's something that would be presented by Chief DeGarro, but ours is roughly, $200,000.
Yeah, I was just thinking of the language, not.
I have not seen a language yet.
Okay.
I have not. I know that this is a deal that was, established by, Captain Coffeyman from Waterloo County Dispatch that, allowed all Walworth County emergency services and fire, police, rescue to participate in, and if we chose to not do what the offer was, then we would be on our own, subject to, a much higher rate.
Okay, so more questions on that, okay, parking reports.
Just a request, so Barb, this is your modified, from your minutes of your official meeting, this is your modified report for this one.
Correct.
Do we have to accept this?
Where's your report?
We haven't necessarily done that in the past, I don't know.
Very good, thank you.
No, it's usually a representative from that committee. There's a difference between representatives that are appointed and actual town committees.
Okay, now parking report.
Yeah, as Todd mentioned, the playground equipment arrived, they got it took in right away, including the sand area for the backhoe. I was able to take some pictures, so I'll send those to Jen to put on the, website and maybe the Facebook page, and we'll also look to include them in our newsletter. I took some, of the whole area and the signs from the boat launch and from the park. That's about it.
Okay, very good. Booth Lake Memorial Park, maybe?
Yeah, we actually have started doing some renovations, some much needed, for the building down there at the park, for the house, and for the concession. Some updates, some electrical work and some such, needed to be updated for reasons of blowing fuses and such, so that's the big one that's going on right now, and, things seem to be going pretty smooth.
Okay, very good. Lakeview Management District report?
No, we have any.
Okay. You, consent committee, John?
Oh, nothing really on cycling.
Okay, library?
Yes, there's a couple of notes here, library board meeting of 8 November 22. Number one, the Lions Club made a donation to the East Troy Public Library in the amount of $1,500. These are show proceeds, car show proceeds. The donation will be used to replace a stained and worn out rug in the lower level children's area, as well as replacing office furniture and purchasing a walking file cabinet. Number two, the merger of the Arrowhead and Lake Shores library systems has been approved. All libraries now must approve an agreement with the newly formed Prairie Lakes Library System. East Troy Public Library approved the agreement, and all participating library agreements must be in effect and to the DPI by January 15, 2023.
So it's called Prairie Lakes what?
That would be the, let's see, Prairie Lakes Library System.
Okay. Is that it?
That's it.
All right. Thank you, Christine.
We'll do that.
All right, communications report, the report.
Yes, so, I was happy to announce that we had 2 new volunteers for the communications committee in order to get us back to full staff, but apparently someone else beat me to the punch line and added it to the agenda on my behalf. So Joe and Mary Jo Jones volunteered. As you know, they've been actively participating in our town board meetings. They provide valuable input They have great, resources to help with, drafting documents and things like that. And as we said, we were down 2 members. Quite honestly, I would not be in a position to decline volunteers with the way things have gone in my 1.5 years of service here on the board. I understand that will require an update to our resolution, committee.
Well, the chairman would have to appoint, and then the board has to vote on any committee member. So that's why it's on.
So that's not how we handled the original committee.
That's what the town code says.
Yeah,
It's
so-
all on recording.
What we did on the original one, was anybody that volunteered, I talked to, and I made the resolution and the entries, and the board discussed it.
It was the ad hoc committee.
That original one was ad hoc,
I
and
was
the
gonna
sec-
say, you talked to Grace Bird and Leah.
these last ones that came up, that was the people that, again, we use the same pattern, anybody that volunteered, you know, ended up on the resolution, okay, and the board did that, so I'll be talking to the Joneses soon. I haven't been to your store yet, so what days a week you work there?
I don't have a store.
No?
No, I'm retired. I'm available.
You're available anytime?
Yes, sir.
I'll come and find you then.
Absolutely.
Same time, both times? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so, questions, beat the punch, whatever, I don't know whose are whose, I go over these underneath here.
Yes.
Okay,
The other one was put on because I don't know if there's been expectations on any of the committees. When I looked at our town code, you have representatives from a number of different committees, but any town committee is subject to notice requirements and an agenda. There's not many that are actual committees. There's park committee, there is the communications committee. There's also cable review committee that we don't have anymore. We have a recycling committee, and the rest are representatives. So last month, I came out of a continuing legal education seminar where they were talking about notice requirements and open meetings. And I wrote that there is such thing out there as a negative quorum of the board. That's 2 members, assuming one of our board members is absent or abstains. It only takes 2. So my recommendation on October 17th to the board was for any town committee, especially one with 2 board members on it, and I said like the communications committee, you have to have notice of those meetings. So that's not unique to the communications committee. That's for every town committee. But I can't think of another committee where we have 2 board members on it, you know? So moving forward, we have to make sure that we adhere to that. Otherwise, the case that I cited in that letter, it was litigated. The court determined since it was an improper meeting, anything that came out of that meeting was no good. Now, that one was a little more serious. In that case, there was a meeting to get rid of a plan commission member that wasn't noticed properly. So once they actually removed the plan commission member, the plan commission member sued and ended up getting back on. So certainly nothing that sinister is happening in this town, but it's a reminder that moving forward there has to be noticed meetings and an agenda, especially if there's 2 board members on the same committee. And then with respect to what goes on the website for Jen, I think she was wondering, you know, does the town board, or did the town board already approve these? Am I supposed to post these? I said, you know what, the town board needs to have that discussion, because I don't know if there's ever been a discussion regarding what comes out of
We had
that.
a discussion on that, first of all, you know, we were supposed to have 4 newsletters already out this year, we got none.
I don't think we ever said a number.
Well, the plan was 4, and the plan was to be is, you know, if the board gets it, you know, a week or so before a board meeting, you're gonna get the kick out of it, because you're gonna have an announcement. I mean, I offered to do, like many towns do, where the chairman just has a monthly report, boom, puts it out there. Nobody else even looks at it, okay? We decided that, no, we're gonna do newsletters. As a matter of fact, we budgeted for it. Matter of fact, it was part of the motions from the annual meeting, says, we're gonna do it. So the intention was that if there's gonna be, you know, a big, an announcement deal where you're talking to our 4,100 residents, it should have basically buy-in from the board, and certainly if it's talking about, you know, Kim's job or Jen's job or Todd's job, that they certainly get to look at too. If we start writing stuff about DPW, we the first guys to say, you know, okay, what out of these 5 things you got here should we put that's relevant, okay? And again, 4 times a year, to me, I always thought that newsletter would be a 2-page. I think you mentioned it could eventually become more of several.
Nope, we said 2 a year, from the ad hoc committee proposal, and we had talked about putting it in the Good Neighbors, which would be a 1-page insert up to 2 sides.
And there was a price that
Yeah.
was chosen for that.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Obviously, there were at least 4 initiatives for the communications committee, and the focus was to update the website, which, our hands were tied for a period due to, capabilities in, internet and updating, Wi-Fi and things like that. Same thing with the video streaming. We were told those were the priorities.
Yes.
The website, the video streaming, and the Facebook page, and those were the things that were done. And the newsletter is the last thing to be.
Well, the last thing would have been the laptop issue.
And we heard from the board that that was no longer a priority.
All right, so I think what we should do is, in that same meeting, we're gonna discuss about, you know, the reports that tie in nicely with, you know, how we haven't put one out there. Right? So, I mean, do we agree that we all wanna take a look at it?
Well, yeah, but
So we make a motion.
But we should be doing that with half the stuff that comes across that we're talking about.
Well,
There's times I come in here and I don't know anything what you're talking about, cause you have it, or so-and-so has it, I mean, well.
And
we wanna share
exactly to
information,
this
let's share all the information.
If this was a concern with the communications committee, why wasn't
I
that
agree.
communicated to me? Rather than in this public forum?
Which part?
Well, I added it
This
to the
discussion right
agenda.
now,
I
and
added it
as
to
far as
the
the
agenda.
newsletter,
Well,
being an
newsletter,
agenda,
yeah, we can
and wanting to review it, and no one has presented a newsletter that hasn't been reviewed.
Well,
So
we haven't
again-
had any.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm saying, it hasn't been presented, so you're making an assumption that you're not gonna see it before it goes
No,
out.
I think is what Jim is getting to is, we haven't, you know, discussed it as a group to say, this is how we're gonna do it, because we haven't did it yet, right? So I think that would be part of that same meeting about, you know, agendas and reports and that type of thing. So, that would be an expectation, I believe, of saying, what do you want? What do you wanna do?
I think that needs to be done with every committee.
I personally looked into this a little bit, Michelle, I would have brought it up tonight too, because it's official, she was down at a meeting where we're all here.
Blindsiding the committee?
That's Dan Alder.
Well, that's your word, I would have brought it, I would have requested
And that's
you
the
tonight.
treasurer.
I would
You know,
ask,
across the street.
I would
Across the
kindly
house,
request
board members.
the
with all the
courtesy,
publishing
the
notes.
respectful courtesy of any questions or concerns about the communications committee brought to the communications committee, so they can be addressed.
You are the chair, I'm assuming that it would have been your responsibility to properly notice meetings. I have not been able to find an agenda, so under open and transparent government, if nobody knows there's a communication committee meeting, including volunteers participating in the meeting and acting towards, as I understand, a newsletter and with the content of the newsletter, then they were not approved by the board, but you invited them to participate in the meeting. So I'm guessing, in good faith, properly noticing the meetings, having agendas, following an appointment and approval process, you did not feel that applied to you.
Correct. It was not clear.
That was never discussed
That
since
was
we
not
started
clear
this
enough.
committee, or any committee is.
Well, the committee appointees is in the town code. I understand you're saying with the ad hoc committee, you don't think it was handled differently, or I'm not sure
They
what.
posted, didn't we post agendas? I'm sure we did. For the ad hoc.
Yeah.
They were all posted.
Well, I mean, there is stuff, you know, but I know there was discussion with Kim when.
Because we were
meeting,
official.
the ad hoc committee communication with the guy next you were talking to, or they called you, or it's not you. So that was the ad hoc, but then he left.
They sent us shown agendas and they were posted. They weren't on the website, but they were posted.
Well, and then back to the main agenda for our meeting here, I mean, our own ordinance says that we can all add, I get all sorts of items on here, I ask him, who had that, who had this? No matter, the only discussion takes place here, right here. Okay, so if it's on there, we discuss it, if it gets removed, we gotta vote on that too, but we can't add. Cause if we add something to this agenda, it's not on the posted agenda, now we need to get proper public notice. So, yeah, that's, I guess, the time again that we are discussing this. So,
The best general information on how the board operates is in chapter 2.2 of the city ordinance, the county ordinance, of the town ordinance. Gives a lot of direction that would be applicable for any official committee. I mean, that's helpful.
Well, and if you look at the town officer's handbook, there's a whole section in there about meetings and notices, and, you know, if there's town subcommittees, there's case law out there that says, okay, what's an actual governmental body versus just a committee where you don't need the notice, so it's not always clear cut. But moving forward, like I suggested in my letter last month, certainly any committee with 2 board members on it, at least has to be noticed.
You're saying just do them all.
That would be my recommendation.
So,
We should look at all.
Right.
if you meet with Kim or whatever, you gotta post it X amount of days before or whatever, right?
Yeah.
From here on, is it 24, is it
3 days.
3 days?
Jim, help me understand the distinction you made earlier about when you have a representative versus. a committee.
Right, I don't believe that that's an actual committee. That's a town board appointed representative that's reporting to this board what some other committee is doing. Only actual town board committees that this town board formed needs to be properly noticed with an agenda.
So, you know, like, the Lakeville Management District, you know, they're
That's not
responsible.
a town.
Right, they're responsible for publishing their own, you know, agenda and.
Are they required to?
And the fire, same thing, has to be noticed, you know, an agenda and all that. Now, I don't know how you do it with the Booth Lake, cause that's actually 3 different committees, that's 3 different.
We all
Well-
posted, each municipality posted.
Well, and I told Kim, it's listed on here tonight as a committee, but the town code says it's a Booth Lake Memorial Park representative.
Oh, great.
So I'm gonna change that to report on the next agenda.
Yep, you're right.
So there's very few.
Yes.
We don't have a cable committee anymore, so it'd be recycling, park, and communications.
Okay.
Correct. Okay, all right, so like I said, we're gonna have to have a meeting just to flush this out with the board, make sure we're all on the same page. I don't think, there should be any major issues with that.
Now, that would be an open meeting, because there's nothing that would make that closed.
You wouldn't put planning in that group?
Oh, planning commission, we already have, they already do
It's
that.
pretty clean.
Right.
It's one of them, though. that
It
would-
is, yes, it is.
You know, you provide a report and your meetings obviously are posted.
Yes.
So okay.
We have staff that does that.
Good.
Like that.
We didn't do all that.
We did planning last time.
We did.
It wouldn't apply to, like, if the Manor District meets here, or Potter's Lake Homeowner Association, those meetings, the Lake Improvement Association, those are not town committees or town action, that's,
But they, with the Lake Management District, they take our tax dollars, so why aren't they forced to video?
you have to go to that meeting,
It's not
it's nothing to do with us.
Okay.
No. Okay, we're gonna move on here, planning commission report, Bill.